Hello and welcome to Sport for Business. We are joined today as part of our leadership interview series by Warren Deutrom, who's the CEO of Cricket Ireland. Warren is one of our most respected sporting leaders, has taken on roles at international level within the sport, having joined Cricket Ireland from having worked with the international sport previously to that. You're very welcome, Warren.
Thank you very much, Rob. Good to be here as always.
Tell us a little bit about where cricket is in Ireland now. Midway through 2020, it has been a year like no other, an opportunity perhaps to sit back, to have a think about the way that we are fixed as organisations and as sports. Cricket has been on a journey. Whereabouts has it arrived at now?
Look at it, I suppose, from a number of angles, Rob. I guess in terms of playing, I think we were one of the very first team sports to actually be back training on June the 8th, which was an incredibly important milestone for the game to cross. Any sport getting back out there again. I think being, I suppose, a sport which is still establishing itself in the mainstream, for us, one of the fears wasn't so much about money and about marketing and events. It was about visibility. It was about ensuring that we weren't going to lose any of the momentum that we had had as sport growing over the last number of years. So for us, getting back out there again, having that sense of opening up again as opposed to closing down, as we all felt was the narrative in March and April, to have that sense that in May, on May the 1st, I think it was, when the government put out its roadmap, everyone then suddenly had that light at the end of the tunnel. And it was something that we and my incredibly hardworking team had grasped very early in consultation with our provinces to say, let's make this our absolute number one priority, to get out there training as quickly as we can, working locally with our players, with our provinces, with our match officials, in consultation with the government to say, north and south, how can we get out there as quickly, but of course as safely as possible? But that was obviously only an hors d'oeuvre to getting back out there playing again. And that's something that I'm delighted and I'm proud to say that we have been doing now for pretty much of the last week or so, the last week, 10 days. We've been back out there playing club cricket. Shame the weather hasn't followed suit with the glories that we had in April and May, but perhaps the weather gods knew the cricket season was on its way back again. But it's just fabulous to be back out there again for people to be able to play the sport that they love. And of course, if we move beyond the club game, looking towards the elite side, we'll be back out there for our test triangle interprovincial competition, and then the women's Super Twos, which are going to be coming out in August and then September. And I guess if we're looking at the elites, I'm delighted that obviously we're going to be the first international Irish team to be out there participating on the very highest stage, playing against England in the inaugural set of matches for the ICC's World Super League. So from that sporting end of things, I think we're in a very, very good place. We're working beyond that. We'll be working with the ICC to hopefully get a date for the Women's World Cup, which is going to be confirmed. We hope it's going to be confirmed for February and March in New Zealand, which obviously then determines the point at which we need to have a cut-off for our qualifying event. It would have been in July. It's now going to be pushed back. We would imagine to sometime around November time, we think. Obviously, it's going to have to be in Asia, bearing in mind the time of year. But I think that for us would give us a fantastic set of targets towards which to work. Obviously, those of us from an administration perspective, money has been high up on the agenda for us, making sure we can do the same as every other business, which is making sure we can get to the end of the year, having been in hibernation, reopening our events and structures, as I've just talked about, making sure that we're in a position to be able to spend money. And if we can get to the end of the year, I think, Rob, having maintained strong relationships with our key members, who are our provinces, Leinster, the Northern Cricket Union, the North West Munster, with our staff, in terms of being able to keep hold of just about everybody, which would be a fantastic achievement if we could. And then, of course, with our players as well. Those are our three key stakeholders. Domestically, obviously, we've got our government, we've got the international stakeholders as well, but as our domestic stakeholders, those are three incredibly important. So if we can get to the end of the year, as we feel confident we shall, that we've managed to cut our cloth, both in terms of our overheads, in terms of our programs, making sure that we can be in a strongish position to be able to reopen again, making sure our commercial revenue streams are robust and protected as far as possible. And then hopefully we'd be able to reschedule the cricket that we've lost this year, maybe put it into the new period that's opened up by the ICC pushing back the World Cup in 23. I think we'll be in a strong position.
I'll come back to the sporting side of it, but you are coming into this year on a stronger basis than you might have been. You had your AGM recently, and it showed that the larger deficit which you'd run in 2018 had been reduced quite dramatically. So 2019 was a good year off the field of play with the financials and the revenue streams. It was also great that you were able to announce a new commercial partnership only last week as well with ITW Sports. So that Turkish Airlines, who have been there as supporters of the men's cricket team, are staying with Cricket Ireland, but that there is a new format coming in as well. So all of that would suggest that things are working reasonably well off the field of play.
Yeah, we believe so. Within 2018, as you're quite right, we have developed a significant amount of debt on the balance sheet. So the first thing that we and the board wanted to do is to be able to discharge that debt as quickly as possible. So when we received additional funding from ICC in 2019, that was something that, certainly within the cash flow elements of it, as opposed to the overall amount we're going to receive from ICC. But the first thing that we did when we received it was discharge that debt and make our balance sheet as clean as we possibly could coming into the beginning of 2019. Obviously, our next objective is to develop as many reserves, or as large a reserve as possible. There's always this push and pull in sports between making sure that you're as debt-free as possible to reduce your risk versus investing as much as you possibly can in the sport to be as successful as you need to be from your performance and your participation objectives. And we as a sport have taken on lots of risk in the past. I can think of 2 or 3 off the top of my head. When we played England in 2013, we pretty much bet the farm on hoping it was going to be sunny in Ireland, hopefully that we were going to get 10,000 people in, Sky Sports to turn up, put on a good show, sell out our hospitality, and the sun was going to shine. And it did all of those things. We've taken a lot of risk on in the past. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And I think we felt that our ability to be able to progress and thrive and consolidate as a new full member, the more operations you have, the more fixed costs you have, the larger staffing complement you have, the more mouths to feed, particularly within our provincial unions and our players, both the male and the female side, the more that we need to try and consolidate as much as possible and reduce that risk. And that's why we felt, let's discharge that debt as much as possible. Obviously, it's not just about managing the money, it's about trying to make the money as well. And that's why, obviously, we were delighted over the last week or so to be able to announce, yes, the loss. I'm not saying announcing the loss of Turkish Airlines was a good thing, but being able to retain them being able to retain them as an official partner was incredibly important. For an airline to be able to do that, bearing in mind all the obvious travails that the airline and the leisure and the tourism business has been through, was I think a fabulous vote of confidence from Turkish Airlines in us, and probably the degree of importance in which they place the relationship that we have developed over the last number of years with them. To be able to complement that as well with a new partnership with ITW Consulting is obviously hugely exciting for us. I don't think there are many new sponsorships being announced at the moment. ITW is in an acquisition phase at the moment, working with a number of the other ICC members around the world, South Africa, Sri Lanka. So I know that they are, and Pakistan as well. So I know that they are looking to acquire new businesses in our sport. We'd worked with them in the past. In fact, on the transmission and the broadcast production of our two hugely successful games against India and Malahide in 2018. So we've worked with each other before, which is a pretty good basis upon which to enter a partnership. So yes, it works, not just in terms of cash. Let's not beat around the bush. Clearly, cash is king in constrained environments as they are at the moment, but also from us, the strategic basis of being able to have a partner who's working with a number of our fellow membership nations or fellow member nations in world cricket. So we're at the start of it. We are hopefully going to be looking forward to working with these guys at least over the next 24, 25 months.
And one of the key things with that is the fact that it is the reason why they're interested in Cricket Ireland is not necessarily for the Irish cricket audience base, but it's for the world base. So there are 12 teams that are playing sport at that level within cricket, and Ireland is now one of those. So the game against England and Southampton as a kickoff for the Super League, broadcast on Sky Sports and on other channels around the world, that will have an audience of tens of millions of people from well beyond the boundaries of Kerry to Stormont. I think that people in Ireland don't really realise the significance and the scale and the heft of cricket at a world level, but you obviously do. You're one of those 12 members that are playing there. Has that had a real impact getting up to that test status on the confidence that Irish cricket has got in itself?
Yeah, I think it has. Our players have always had confidence in themselves, and I think the shift a number of years ago was ourselves as an organisation having confidence in ourselves. I would argue that when our guys took the field of play in those sort of mid to late years of the noughties, we probably took the field of play with as much confidence about our ability to beat the opposition, no matter who they were, no matter what their history and their talent and their ability, as almost any other Irish sporting code, including rugby. We went on the field thinking we can beat you guys no matter what, no matter who you are. And I think that's infused in Irish cricket a sense of self-belief. I think the one thing that we do have over any other Irish sport is our ability to be able to penetrate that South Asian marketplace, that enormous South Asia marketplace where for 20-25% of the world's population, cricket is the number one sport. We have the ability to be able to get to that key tourism and economic marketplace in a way that no other Irish sport, probably no other Irish brand can. You would have heard me say in the past that in the likes of, for 20% of that world's population, not many would have heard of Bono and Paul O'Connell and Brian O'Driscoll, but most of them have heard of Kevin O'Brien. And that's an amazing thing for us to be able to deliver. You talk about the visibility of our matches. The games I mentioned against India, those two T20s, they would have been watched by more people than any other event that had ever been staged in Ireland, whether it be Six Nations, whether it be the Pope's visit in 1980, whatever it was. Irish cricket has been seen globally by more eyeballs than has ever been seen previously. And that's going to be the same for these ODIs coming up. Why? There's not just any other Irish international code playing. We're the only cricket matches that are going to be played at that time as well. We are the second, we've got the second highest following of any other sporting code on social media. And a very large percentage of that is actually in the South Asian marketplace. So we've always said we're now a major nation in cricket. But our growing objective has become a major sport in Ireland. And it's slightly backwards. Most sports will become very significant within their own countries. And on the back of that, will then become a major nation globally within their own sport. We're possibly unique in doing it the other way around. we've become a major nation within our sport without having conquered our own backyard. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to use that, I suppose, that heft, to use your word, that we have within our sport to be able to be seen on Sky Sports, and we're going to be on, free-to-air highlights on the BBC as well for those 3 games, to be able to use that enormous visibility to be able to drive forward, I suppose, our oxygen at home.
And we've got young players coming through now. What's the situation like at club level and at development level? Has it begun to surge really in terms of the talent which is coming through, and also the reach out into communities that might once have been exclusively the preserve of Gaelic games, rugby and football?
I mean, look, over the years, we've had a number of clubs that have sort of become sort of much more prominent, have begun to grow out in the west of Ireland, in Galway, down in County Kerry. You probably would have seen some of the fabulous photographs from down in County Kerry. In fact, I know their team sponsor very well because he happens to be my cousin, would you believe, which is a whole new story I'll come to later on. But also out in the west of Dublin, the new Irish, the Asian diaspora that I talked about. The game is growing in terms of level of interest, in terms of certainly the new Irish. Our numbers are growing in terms of those trying the game and tasting the game. As the more we've grown, the more we've invested in the grassroots of the game, particularly through our provincial unions, the more that they, as the provinces, have been able to put boots on the ground to have development officers, putting together marrying up clubs with their local schools, tertiary education institutions, for us to be able to grow the game as much as possible. So the answer is yes. Do we want it to be more? Yes, of course we do. But I know one of the strategic imperatives that we've followed is if we become a full member, we're going to get onto the ICC's Future Tours program, which is the calendar of international matches. If we do that, we'll be able to develop a broadcast relationship on the back of that. If we're doing that, we're going to be visible. If we're visible, we're going to be more talked about. We're going to be more on social media, radio, television, press, etc., etc. That's what we're doing. The more we're going to do that, the more we're going to be visible, not just to people who want to play the game, but also to commercial partners who want to be part of it, understanding what our ability is to be able to reach into those new marketplaces, not just at home, but overseas as well.
Well, we'll definitely have to come back to learn more about that story of your cousin and the Kerry cricket sponsorship. But in a year where sport has been very much on the back foot and looking to find ways in which to come out, it's brilliant to hear such positivity and such energy coming out around cricket. The best of luck to both the men's senior team against England in the coming days. The best of luck to all of the teams as the sport begins to shake off those that cloak of hibernation which has surrounded it over the last number of months. And the best of luck to you, Warren, in terms of steering the path towards making cricket mainstream in Ireland, as well as it is already on the world stage. So, Warren Deutrom, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Rob. Always a pleasure.